Go. Hi, this is Stuart Nachbar with Educated Quest. With me today, and he's in Western Illinois on a hot summer day, is Brock McNinch. He is the Director of Admissions at Monmouth College in Monmouth, Illinois. Now, there are two Monmouths. I live in New Jersey, and there's a Monmouth University, but that is over quintuple the number of students that Monmouth College has. Monmouth College is a small school that has a long history. It dates back to 1867, I believe.
1853,
1853.
even earlier.
Wow. So there's a lot of history behind this school. It's part of the Associated Colleges of the Midwest, along with some colleges that change lives, like Cornell College in Iowa. But also it's Grinnell, which is a very selective school, Carleton. They're also a part of this conference, this group of schools. And are they sports rivals as well, Brock?
Could you say that one more time?
Are they sports rivals as well? Like Grinnell and Cornell
Some
and
some of the schools in the ACM are within our Midwest conference as well, and some aren't. So schools like Grinnell, Cornell, Knox College, Lake Forest, they're within our conference and rivals in different ways. Yep.
so they schlep all over Illinois and Iowa.
Oh yes. And occasionally up into Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, Beloit is part of that group too.
Yep. Yep.
And one other thing I'm curious about is given, financial issues with small colleges and given changing tastes and preferences among high school students planning to go to college, has the idea of a liberal arts college been easier or more challenging to market?
I feel like it really depends on the student that you're talking to. We've seen both that it can be easy and it can also be hard. And I think for the students where it's hardest to, sell that idea of a liberal arts education, they often are counting out the liberal arts schools before they even have the conversation, which is really unfortunate. But for those who stick it out and at least give it a shot, they may have reservations, but I'm interested, I want to learn after having conversation and talking about the liberal arts and what that really means for them and what that experience will be, you see the gears turning and you see it in their eyes. They start to see, oh, that's what I'm looking for. I just didn't connect the dots that a liberal arts education is that. I think the issue is they only know what they see and hear out in the public, right? You see what's on the news, you hear about certain schools more often than others. And so you have these fears that might build up and misconceptions. But then once you get to the school and you hear about this and you speak to a professor and they explain, here's how this English class is going to benefit you in our biochemistry classroom, they start to understand and they start to see, especially for those students who have multiple interests, I can combine this. I can do everything that I want to. So it is difficult, and I think the difficult part of it is just combating what is out there and maybe misleading in some ways. But once you get past that, or once you have a student who's willing to hear, it becomes a pretty easy conversation to have with them and something easy to sell to them that, okay, this is what I want. Yeah.
Suppose like you're doing a college fair in Chicago or Milwaukee versus going to a more suburban community in Illinois or the neighboring states. Is the pitch different?
I think it definitely should be different depending on where you're at. Students are going to have different things that are important to them. Um, I think back to when I started in admission, I had a recruitment territory that was um, basically all over the Chicagoland area. So I would go to fairs in the city. I would also maybe have a fair in the evening out in a suburb. And the types of conversations you have will definitely be different. Um, My goal was always to let the student lead that conversation, whether they knew they were leading it or not. I was, maybe I'm helping them get there. And so I knew what was important to them, and I could adjust based off of, what they want to know. Um, there's also a lot of similarities, of course. They want to know, is this a place I can afford? Is this a place I'm going to feel comfortable? Is it going to help me achieve my goals? So there's a lot of overlap with those conversations. But then, a student who maybe lives in the city of Chicago, if they're coming out to Monmouth, Illinois, you really can't get too much further from that experience coming to Monmouth. Like we were talking about earlier, there's cornfields surrounding us, very small town. And so there's just that difference of, okay, let's have a conversation about what life will be like. How is that going to be different for you? Is that something that you're comfortable with, what you want? I would often find that there were a lot of students who wanted that type of experience. They wanted something different than the city. So yeah, it depends on where you are, what kind of things you talk about and how you sell the school, but it really comes from a place of listening to the student and making sure that you're, talking to them about what they want you to talk about.
Given where Monmouth is in terms of location, what schools are considered most often? Is it they look at it versus the public colleges, or do they look at it versus other liberal arts schools?
Yeah, it's a combination. The largest competitors, and this is really just because of volume, tend to be the state schools. So Illinois State, University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, and Western Illinois University, which is just about 40 minutes south of us. So those tend to be the largest competitors just based on volume alone. But then when you're looking at schools that are a little more similar to us, the private schools, maybe a little bit smaller, they tend to be, again, a little more regional around where we're located. So schools like Bradley, Augustana, Knox College, Illinois College, those tend to have a lot of overlap and interest with our students.
Do you ever get like an accident, like they're on their way to visit, say, Beloit or Knox, and you're in between, and they come to see you, and they end up depositing?
Occasionally that happens, and we love when that does. I thought you might have been asking if they might be going out to New Jersey, which also has happened.
Yeah, I was wondering about that because the location is going to be a hard sell for kids here, because you're not near a beach and you're not that close to like Chicago's city, like New York is a city, and you're
Right.
not close to those kinds of cities. But there's an appeal often to a smaller community. And you were under 800 students now.
Yep.
Do you want the community to grow?
Yeah, we would like to see some growth, and that's something that we are in the middle of working on right now. The class that's coming in this year, for example, is on track to be one of, if not the largest in the past 5 years at least. So we're starting to see that growth now. And there's a few things, of course, that have been done recently to help with that. But yeah, to your point of, just our location kind of being difficult with those metrics that you mentioned, the way I think of it is I try to see my own experience. I'm not from Monmouth. I mentioned I didn't happen to attend Monmouth myself. Um, and I didn't grow up in a large city. I grew up in the Quad City area, which comparatively is fairly large. But when I moved down here and I started working here, a few of the things I noticed were it's comfortable. I feel safe. It's relaxed. I can focus. And so I started to see, okay, how does that relate to a student? And for a student, it means you are going to be focused on what you're doing for your time in college. You're going to get super involved. You're going to have everything at your fingertips right here. You're not going to be worried about everything going on off campus. You're not going to be distracted. You're just going to have that experience here. And the students who come to Monmouth, they want that and they value that. And so it's easy to market small town Illinois in that way, whereas others are touting, oh, big city, so much to do off campus. We're really talking about you want to come to college, you want to have this experience. If you come here, that is what you're doing. And so our students really value that.
You just said it's one of the larger classes that you had in the last 5 years. Is it one of the more geographically diverse classes too?
I'm not sure I would say most geographically diverse. Our student body really tends to come mostly from within state.
Okay.
Um, and when looking at the state, many of them come from not the big city type areas. So a lot of like central Illinois, northwestern Illinois, some areas that maybe are a little more similar to a Monmouth. But we do see about a quarter to a third of our students who come from out of state markets. Athletics is a big driver for a lot of our out of state students. We see pockets in Florida, kind of across the Southeast, Texas. So some of those areas we see a lot of interest as well.
That's interesting. The class there's some draws that people become aware of, and that get people more interested. Now I want to just go to academics. Are there recent additions to the academic programs that have led more people to look at Monmouth than looked at Monmouth in the past?
Yeah. There's two programs that I would highlight here that have really impacted our student body most. One of them, it's kind of hard to say it's new at this point because it's been around for a little bit, but it's engineering. And the reason I still think of it as a new program is because we're at the tail end of the ABET accreditation process, which hopefully in the next 2 weeks we'll actually hear back from them. So we're looking forward to that. But that program itself is one of the faster growing on our campus. This year alone, we have a little over 20 students coming in who have indicated an interest in majoring in engineering already. And we anticipate that should we get good news from the ABET accreditation process, that number will continue to increase. The other one, which is definitely newer, is that we just started a partnership program for nursing. And the way this works is kind of unique. We're partnered with OSF, which is our area's hospital system. So OSF has their own College of Nursing on their main campus in Peoria. And the way this program will work is that they will do all 4 years of their degree at Monmouth on our campus. The first 3 years of this program will be a Monmouth bachelor's degree. And then that final fourth year, they'll still be here, but they'll be getting an accelerated BSN from OSF,
Oh, very
still
nice.
on campus. So it's helping to draw students who wouldn't have looked at Monmouth before because we didn't have an option, who are now seeing, I wanted to go to Monmouth. They didn't have it before, but now they have a solution for me, and I that's what I want to do. And so some of the benefits for the students in this program are especially for those who really like to be involved. So often, you'll think of a nursing program as you are doing this and nothing else because you can't, right? And we've had students who have come and visited in the past, and at that point, if they wanted to do nursing, it It would have to be a graduate program that they would go to. But they would tell us, you know what, I think that's okay because I want to do all of this extra stuff. I want to be an athlete. I want to be in band. I want to do this and that. And the school that I went to just before I came and visited here said, well, you can't do that if you come here. And so what happens now is they have a solution. They can go to Monmouth, and in those first 3 years, they can be a varsity athlete. They can be involved in music ensembles. They can be in the theater. They can do all these things, have that experience that they wanted, get that first bachelor's degree from Monmouth, and then in that fourth year, be hyper focused on that accelerated BSN and become the nurse that they want to be and focus on it at that time. So we've seen a lot of interest there. And again, we've got 26 students coming in this year just for that program. So we're very excited about that and seeing that grow.
Well, I've heard of bigger schools where the first cohort was smaller than that. In
Yeah,
the
we are absolutely thrilled. And this is something that we anticipated could happen is that we would get a larger class, especially in this first year. Part of it is because our location, there is such a high need for nurses right now. And just from our own experience going into schools and going to college fairs, that was something we heard the most from students that we didn't offer. They would ask, do you have nursing? Do you have nursing? And so it was kind of a no-brainer for us to find a solution to provide that.
So, given the way this is structured, let's say you came in with different intentions, like working in another health profession.
Yep.
Can you decide later, I want to be in the accelerated program, or do you have to commit to it your freshman year?
So right now, because it's brand new, and this will be the first cohort to go through, what we're saying is you've got to have that declared as you come in,
Okay.
because it is basically two accelerated degrees, a degree in 3 years and a degree in 1 year that takes transfer courses, right? So they will have to do a little bit more and stay on track. So if you start it a little later, it might work out for you, but you won't be able to do it quite on that accelerated pathway.
So there'll be
Um,
in the freshman year, there'll be some nursing only classes that
well, the
to
the
make up.
nursing the nursing only will come in that fourth year.
Okay.
But in their first 3 years, they'll be in one of three programs on our campus. Those would be biology, biopsychology, or health science and human movement. And so part of the requirements for the fourth year, that accelerated program in the fourth year, is that you have to come in with a degree already. So they have to meet all the requirements to complete a bachelor's from Monmouth in the first 3 years to then get to that program in the fourth year. Now,
Will your office look at AP courses more strictly than some schools because of the accelerated path?
so we've always accepted AP credit, and we'll continue to do that in the same way that we always have. Um, when it comes to going into that fourth year, the students will still have to apply for the program since
Okay.
it's going into a new school just on the same location at Monmouth. But as long as they meet those requirements through our program, they get in.
So if they did the
So
prerequisite in high school through AP, that's okay too.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that and for some students that is really beneficial because it helps them not have to be quite as accelerated, if that makes sense. So instead of taking maybe a fifth course this term, they've already met that requirement, so they can do a more normal load and not have to worry about taking extra. So it's helpful for those students who are coming in with a few credits. And we've seen that already with some of the students in this incoming cohort. They're coming in with credit that maybe is AP, it could be dual enrollment credit. And it may not necessarily be something that directly applies to nursing, but it may count as a requirement for Monmouth College graduates. So it is helping them in the long run.
So it's interesting. In effect, they're going to have a double major. They're going to have one of the three majors from the college, and they'll have the nursing major from the nursing school.
Yeah, in a way that's kind of how it works. At the end of the day, they will have two bachelor's degrees after 4 years.
And if you have an exercise science and a degree with a nursing BSN, that could be an interesting career path for someone.
Now, the thing is, they do have to major in one of those three areas. So it has to be either biology, biopsychology, or health science and human movement.
Right.
And the reason those three were picked is because, of course, there was a lot of discussion back and forth with our faculty and OSF College of Nursing's faculty to ensure that whatever program they took at Monmouth would have all of the prerequisites they need and any other requirements that maybe are not in other majors, right? So those three programs meet every requirement they have to get into their nursing program. And so that's why it's those three.
Now, we've talked about engineering and nursing.
Yeah.
What new programs will now incoming for you're going to have an incoming freshman class? What new things will be there by the time they're seniors that don't exist now or just getting started, like the nursing cohort, just getting started?
Yeah, yeah. So, I don't know that we've mentioned this yet, but the one thing that will be most noticeable is that we're kind of reorganizing our academic programs into schools. So six schools, right? Um, and it's not new programs for them, right? It's not a new major that's available. It's just a new way of organizing them. So that's one thing that they're going to see right away. In terms of academic programs, there are a handful that are going through feasibility studies starting this fall to start seeing what will the new programs be that we add in over time. I'm not sure if a student coming in this year will see those by the time they graduate, or at least be able to major in them by that time. But depending on the success of that study, it may be implemented before they graduate. And so, of course, none of this has been set in stone yet, but a few of the things that are being thought of are programs like ag business, sport management, criminal justice. I think those three are kind of at the top of the list of what we know our population of students have been interested in that we don't currently offer. And also, just through studies of, is there a market for this? Post grad, are you going to get a job? So those are a few things that are being worked on right now. I'm hopeful that the feasibility studies go well for those programs because I've heard plenty of times from prospective students that they have interest in those areas. But that's what we're looking at right now is, what are these programs that students want? How can they fit in at Monmouth? Will this work for us? And what's that timeline to implement them? So we're starting that process this fall.
It's interesting. There are going to be six divisions. I've read they're called schools of thought.
Yeah,
How
yes.
does that change your admissions process? Are prospective students going to pick a school? Do they, outside of nursing, where they have to commit early, will they have to pick a major? Will there be unique school requirements they have to meet? How will this change things for you and your team in terms of selecting students?
Yeah, that's a great question. So with this, switch to academic schools, basically the only thing that is changing is the organization of our academic side of campus. So for applications, for requirements, that will all stay the same as it has been. So when a student applies to Monmouth College, they just apply to the college overall. they will indicate an interest in what they want to study. So, for example, let's say if I'm applying to Monmouth College and I want to study business, I will indicate that. And then once that student arrives on campus and officially declares their major, that will then place them in the school. So if we're doing business, then we'll be in the School of Business based off of that. But there won't be specific requirements that vary based on those academic schools. The big thing that will change from this is on the faculty side. So currently with the setup of having just individual departments across campus, there's a lot of administrative work that faculty have to do and keep up with. And so with this change, it moves a lot of that from individual departments to just 6 schools. So there will be fewer people that have those responsibilities to take on, which means more of the faculty will have much more time to do other duties that directly are impacting students. So the big one here is student advising and mentoring. And so that's one of the things that the college is going to have a big focus on over the next few years is continually improving how our faculty advise students, making sure mentorship is, at the forefront and important for our students. So that is part of what's coming out of this switch is taking a lot of those responsibilities that faculty were having to do before, changing the way it's done so that they have more time and ability to do what they do best and work with the students and help them grow and get them to that future that they envision. And that's really at the core of what Monmouth is. We are helping students realize their potential and change their lives and go off and have successful careers and lives. So being able to have more of that one-to-one and mentorship and advising with the faculty is really important for us. So that's part of the change here is making sure we can do more of that.
So will the faculty remain advisors for the first year students, or will you have professional advisors?
The faculty will remain advisors. And so the faculty advisors, the faculty are advisors for all of our students. So we don't have specific people who are non-faculty doing that work. It's always a professor that you can see in your classroom.
So
And
a philosophy professor might be advising engineering and pre-med.
well, the advisor would be within your area.
Okay.
So what happens here is as an incoming students will see things slightly differently, and that's mostly just to accommodate everyone in a short period of time. So incoming students, it might be an engineering student who happens to be advised by a chemistry professor, for
Okay.
example. Let's say that. But that is just for the first time that they're registering for classes, just to make sure that they're getting into what they need to. The requirements in your first semester are fairly laid out too, so it's not a strenuous process. But after that point, a student will select their advisor. So that engineering student will select a professor within their major to be
Okay.
their advisor. Yeah. And that way they're getting the support that's most useful within their program. They've got that mentorship, and it makes sense, right?
One of the things that's nice about a liberal arts college is it's probably easier to come in undeclared than it is in other institutions. Will that still be true with Monmouth, or do the divisions make it a little harder to be undeclared?
That will still be the case.
Okay.
It is definitely an easy process to come in undeclared, spend a semester, 2 semesters, maybe get into that second year, still undecided, and make a choice later on. That will still be the case. It'll still also be the case that students can major in multiple areas even if they're in different schools. So
Okay.
you could see a student who is maybe majoring in business, so they're in the School of Business, but they also want to major in art. And so now they're in that school too. That'll still be possible. Um, so that, isn't going to change at all for the students. If anything, they should see an easier path to do that because the faculty will be able to work more closely and more individually with them because of these changes. So they'll understand, how do I do this? What do I need to do? And we have been doing that already, right? Most of our students do have double majors or tack on minors, but that will still be the case even with this
Class
school.
scheduling, given the size of the student body and the size of the faculty, works out for most people who want to do, let's say, computer science and philosophy, or as you've just said, business and art. It's always been possible. The classes were at times that the students could go.
Yes, yeah, it's always been possible, and another benefit of being the size that we are, they can help you find a new way to meet the requirements that you need if there is conflicting schedules.
Okay.
So they may know, okay, you need to take this class at this time in this semester because if you don't, it could extend your time in college, right? They'll know that, but they'll also know this other class that's happening at the same time. You can take that next term. It will be offered. It won't affect your schedule then. It's maybe not a prereq for something else. It's just a requirement for that other major. And so they'll help the students understand all of that and make sure that they're getting in where they need to. Or sometimes we've seen that a professor may help a student design an independent study that will meet the requirement of what they need, and so they can fulfill requirements that way. So our faculty work really hard to make sure that the students are getting what they need, and in the time frame that they need. The only thing that has to happen is the student needs to take the initiative and be on top of it and use the resource. But even then, there's some faculty that they may show up at your door. They may knock on the door and say, "Hey, we've got to do this," and they're going to help the student through because that's the most important part of why they're here. They want to be here to help
And
students.
aside from nursing, it sounds like you're going to be a single doorway. If you plan right, you could walk in, you could walk out of the school in any major. You don't
That's
have,
right.
you didn't have to, you didn't have to forget about something from day one, the way you might have
That's
at
right.
your schools.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. A student can come into Monmouth. They could come in undecided, and at that point, figure out, you know what, actually, I want to do this major. They declare that major and get started right away with that. So there's not specific application requirements or anything for the majors like you may see at other schools, especially larger schools.
One thing I did notice, and I noticed this when I read and wrote about Knox, there's a Peace Corps prep program.
Yeah.
I forgot to ask the person from Knox about that. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so a handful of students every so often will be interested in starting off their post-grad life helping, helping in some way, right? And this Peace Corps prep program is a great option for them to do that. And so, it's preparing the students with skills that go in conjunction with whatever their major may be. So, the Peace Corps prep, it's not a major program. It's not something you graduate in, right? It's more of an addition, a thought process. I want to do this. I need these extra skills. And so the faculty who involve themselves with this are helping the students prepare for that type of experience. So we'll see a handful of students every so often go off and do this. It's obviously not, something that students come in droves for. You have to be a certain type of person to want to do this, right? But for the students that do, they get use out of this program and they go off and they serve people across the world. So it's a cool thing to be able to offer.
What do you um a lot of the majors we've talked about have been like more pre-professional kinds of things. Do people in like the alumni community or people like who have been in academia see this as it's less of a liberal arts college than it's been in the past?
There are some who kind of question that, and to that line of thought, I say it's not about the majors offered. That's not what makes a liberal arts education. The liberal arts part of this comes within all of the majors. So you can take an engineer and they are going to have a liberal arts education for engineering. It's not just engineering all day, right? They're also going to be in communication classes, in English classes. They're getting these additional skills and thought processes outside of that core area of engineering. One of our professors in physics and engineering likes to refer to it as Renaissance engineering because it's bringing in more than just, the math, the problem solving. You're thinking of things in different ways. So while yes, we do have a lot more of these more professional STEM, focused type of programs now than we have maybe in past years, it's still being taught in a liberal arts mindset of bringing in that breadth of knowledge, having, a time in your day where you're not doing math anymore, but you're thinking critically about life in some way, right? How do I work with people? How do I then connect what I've learned in those classes with my major area? So it still 100% is liberal arts at Monmouth. That is a commitment that we have and will always have. And so yeah, to those who are thinking it's not quite liberal arts anymore, I say it is. It is within the majors. It is with the education. The professors have that focus. And we know that it's important and valuable. And our alums know that this education is important and valuable because they had it. They see the success that they have. One of our alums who's a CEO of a financial firm out of Chicago, he gave our commencement address a few years back, and he spoke to that exactly. He knows the value of liberal arts, and so when it comes time for him to make hires within his organization, he looks for that type of student. So we are continuing that way. We'll never change that. It's always going to be there. It just might look a little bit different than what it was in the past.
Last question. I kept reading and hearing a phrase Monmouth Magic. And this is the kind of community I thought, well, it's not very large. It's not in a large place. You got to make your friends quickly. How does Monmouth Magic tie in with that?
Yeah, the Monmouth Magic. I think for everyone, they may see the Monmouth Magic in a little bit of a different way. It's kind of just the way that the school impacts you. And oftentimes the way that the school impacts you most when you didn't think that it would. One of our staff members, the college chaplain, he was a Monmouth student. And maybe you saw him in a video you may have seen talking about the Monmouth Magic. Uh, you know, his experience here completely changed his life. He was going in this direction. He got to campus and started going in this direction, right? So it's the little things every day. It's the people who care about you on an individual level. It's the lady in the dining hall making your omelets in the morning. Her name is Penny, by the way. She's campus royalty. It's just the people caring about you, making sure that you are going to be successful. Taking care of you outside of the classroom. It's not always about your grades. It's not always about what you're studying. Sometimes it's about how's life going back at home? What can I do to help you out right now? How can I get you more involved? So the magic is a little bit different to everyone, but you know it when it's happening. You can feel it, and you take that with you even after graduation. And even for those of us like me who didn't attend Monmouth, but we live here, we work here, we see the interactions, we feel it too. So that's the Monmouth magic. I didn't answer your question. I didn't give you a concrete answer, but that's what the magic is. It's something a little different to everyone, and you know it when it happens. You can feel it, and you see the results. It's people caring.
Brock, thank you for educating me about Monmouth College. No one will ever mistake it with Monmouth University. But that Monmouth University is a mile from a beach on the Atlantic Ocean. But I think that Monmouth College has a lot to offer, and it does it at a fairly reasonable price for a private school. And there's a lot to this school, and I hope people will check this conversation out, and we'll check out what I've written is obviously what the college has announced as well. Thank you for spending this time with me today.
Well, thank you for having me. It was great talking to you.